Number 12. Kendrick Nunn. Kendrick Nunn has had an up-and-down career thus far in the NBA. The 28-year-old point guard has gone from undrafted gemstone to injured mistake of a signing, and at the time of writing has yet to find a team for the 2023-24 NBA season. Before all of that, however, he was a member of the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors brought the undrafted guard in for training camp in 2018, subsequently waiving him and funneling him to their G League affiliate in Santa Cruz. He played 51 games for them, showing enough for the Miami Heat to sign him just prior to the end of the season to a multi-year deal, developing him into a starter right away. Number 11. Shabazz Napier. Shabazz Napier had a wild few months in early 2014. First, the point guard led the University of Connecticut to a national championship, carrying a defensive-minded team through the NCAA tournament and landing an unlikely title. 3 months later, the Miami Heat appeared to have drafted him in the first round as a part of the recruiting pitch for LeBron James to stay with the Heat. That pitch didn't work, and Napier lasted just 1 season in Miami before beginning his trek around the league. He has suited up for 6 different teams, but he in fact landed on a 7th when he briefly passed through the Golden State organization. In the summer of 2019, Kevin Durant was heading to the Brooklyn Nets, and Bob Myers and the rest of the Warriors front office worked quickly to turn Durant's departure into a double sign and trade. The Dubs brought in D'Angelo Russell to maintain Durant's salary slot, and as a part of that deal, Trevin Graham and Napier went to the Warriors. The following day, Napier was then flipped in a separate deal to the Minnesota Timberwolves, along with Graham, making his stay in the Bay Area one of the shortest in franchise history. Napier would make it just 1 more season in the league before his career shifted outside of the NBA. Number 10. Keith Smart. Keith Smart was a longtime NBA head coach who spent a notable stretch with the Golden State Warriors. After serving as an assistant coach for 7 seasons, he took over as head coach for the 2010-11 season, famously playing AC Law over Stephen Curry in important moments. Those moments didn't go very well for Smart, and after a single 36-46 season he was fired. What many Warriors fans may not know is that his coaching tenure wasn't the first time that Smart was a part of the Golden State organization. Smart was a starter for the 1987 Indiana Hoosiers championship team, hitting the game-winning shot in the title game over the Syracuse Orangemen. Smart was then eligible for the 1988 NBA draft, and he was selected 41st overall by the Warriors. He didn't make it to the start of the season, however, as Smart was waived the following October. He caught on with the San Antonio Spurs, who kept him around for a month and played him in 2 games before cutting him themselves. That was the end of Smart's NBA career. He played overseas for a time before coming back to the States to start his coaching career. Strangely, despite never playing a single game, his 4 months in the Warriors organization was his longest NBA stop as a player. Number 9. Danuel House. Danuel House is the epitome of an NBA journeyman, a player who fills his role and hits shots when asked but is never valued by the teams he is on. It's great to have him, and it's usually even great to play him, but having House is never a significant priority for a team. His biggest moment in the league likely came in the NBA bubble, when he violated the protocols on having people in his room, being kicked out of the bubble and leaving the already short-handed Houston Rockets that much thinner as they prepared to play the Los Angeles Lakers. He then played for the Utah Jazz and is now on the Philadelphia 76ers. Before he established himself as a legitimate NBA player, the undrafted House spent the first couple of seasons of his career trying to claw his way into the league. He signed with the Washington Wizards and played a single game in the 2016-17 season, then made it onto a 2-way deal with the Phoenix Suns the following season. In 2018 he was again a free agent and this time signed a training camp deal with the Golden State Warriors. That team was coming off of its 2nd straight title and their depth was eroded. They could have used a player like House, but he wasn't able to impress the team enough to hang around. They waived him prior to the season. He signed with the Rockets a month later, and the rest is history. Number 8. Andre Roberson. The Golden State Warriors and their fans surely remember the long-limbed Andre Roberson. He was the defensive stopper for the Oklahoma City Thunder for many of the 2 teams' battles during the height of the dynasty, including playing a key role for the 2016 Thunder team that nearly knocked off the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. Roberson's inability to shoot eventually ended his career before it should have, but he was a truly special defensive player. In the 2017 playoffs, he averaged 2.4 steals and 3.4 blocks per game in a monstrous showing against the Houston Rockets. While his first NBA minutes came in a Thunder uniform, Roberson actually began his career with the Minnesota Timberwolves, who drafted him with the 26th pick of the 2013 NBA draft. They immediately flipped Roberson to the Golden State Warriors for cash and a second-round pick. The Warriors didn't keep Roberson around either, turning around and sending Roberson to the Thunder for Kentucky guard Archie Goodwin, another player who never played a minute for the Warriors. The Dubs certainly could have used a player like Roberson, but his stop with the Warriors was as short as they get. Number 7, Georges Niang. This past summer the Cleveland Cavaliers, prioritizing shooting in free agency, signed stretch forward Georges Niang to a multi-year contract. Niang has established himself as a willing gunner from outside, and despite his athleticism limitations, his hustle and strength help him to survive defensively. Niang has been a beloved teammate wherever he has played, and while he's not an elite athlete, one of his nicknames is the minivan to contrast him with the sports cars he plays with. His shot has not only kept him around the league but made him a coveted player in free agency. Bang Bang Niang has played important minutes for the Utah Jazz and Philadelphia 76ers over the years. There was a moment in his career where things seemed less certain, however. After a shaky rookie season with the Indiana Pacers, Niang was waived in July of 2017. He signed with the Golden State Warriors to compete for a roster spot in training camp, but the contending Warriors didn't ultimately have a spot for him and cut him before the start of the season. Niang wouldn't catch on with another team at first, playing 26 games for the Santa Cruz Warriors before the Utah Jazz signed him to a two-way contract. From there he would earn his way onto a full deal and eventually into the hearts of Jazz fans. Number 6, Avery Bradley. One of the most famous training camp battles in recent memory took place prior to the 2021-22 NBA season, when the Golden State Warriors were looking to fill their final roster spot heading into the season. The final two contenders? Longtime NBA veteran guard Avery Bradley and fringe player Gary Payton II. Bradley looked to have a clear advantage. He had 11 seasons under his belt, including 7 seasons with the Boston Celtics where he largely started in the backcourt. He was a good offensive player with a solid jump shot, but Bradley buttered his bread on defense. He was one of the league's premier one-on-one guard defenders, hounding opponents the length of the court. Payton, on the other hand, had a famous last name but no true NBA credentials to speak of. With Bradley getting verbal support from the Warriors veterans like Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, the decision seemed obvious. Until, of course, Bob Myers and Steve Kerr made the call to cut Bradley and sign Payton. GP2 would go on to play a critical role in their championship, while Bradley would have a largely unforgettable season with the Los Angeles Lakers, his last in the league. Number 5, Jose Calderon. Fans of international basketball will certainly recognize the name and game of Jose Calderon, the longtime point guard of the Spanish national team. He also had a long and successful NBA career, playing for 14 seasons as one of the steadiest hands in the business. Calderon's call to fame was his free throw shooting, and he set the second longest streak for the most consecutive free throws made without a miss in the 2008-09 season. That came 1 year after joining the NBA's 50-40-90 club, an exclusive group littered with some of the best scorers in league history. He played 8 seasons for the Toronto Raptors and the other 6 bouncing around the league. Near the end of that career, the Golden State Warriors signed him in March of 2017 to fill their final roster spot heading into the playoffs. Literally the next day, however, they cut Calderon to sign Matt Barnes instead. They would go on to win the championship, and Calderon would instead go out in the first round with the Atlanta Hawks. Number 4, Ben Gordon. Not many players born in London make it to the NBA. That tends to be the starting place for football careers, not elite basketball ones. Gordon defied the odds, winning a national championship with the Yukon Huskies before the Chicago Bulls drafted him with number 3 overall pick in the 2004 NBA draft. Gordon would have a prolific 11-year career before a failing body accelerated his departure from the league. He played 5 seasons for the Bulls just prior to their renaissance under Tom Thibodeau, then jogged through some other Eastern Conference squads. At the very end of his career, Gordon hoped to hang on by signing with the Golden State Warriors in September of 2015. The Warriors were coming off of their first title of the dynasty and looking to reload the final few spots on the roster, and they took a flyer in training camp on Gordon. He wasn't able to make the cut, likely losing out to Ian Clark for the final roster spot. He stuck around the G League for a while before finally hanging it up. Number 3, Gerald Wallace. One of the best nicknames in basketball during the 2000s was that of Gerald Wallace. Crash lived up to the moniker every time he stepped onto a basketball court, using his strength and athleticism to his advantage while getting into the mix for every rebound and loose ball there was. The 25th pick in the 2001 NBA draft began his career as a minor role player for the Sacramento Kings, then broke out in a major way for the Charlotte Hornets as a defensive maven and transition terror. He made just a single All-Star game but was a well-known name in the league. Wallace was famously traded from the Portland Trail Blazers to the Brooklyn Nets in 2012, with the Nets seeing only 3 players they liked in the upcoming draft and therefore placing only top 3 protection on the pick. It landed at 7th, and the Blazers drafted Damian Lillard. Unsurprisingly, his physical brand of basketball led to a steep decline late in his career, and at the age of 32 he was ping-ponged around the league as teams got off of his remaining salary. That included the Golden State Warriors adding him in July of 2015, then flipping him for veteran big Jason Thompson a month later. Wallace in his prime would have been a welcome addition to the Warriors, but Wallace at the end of his career wasn't able to help. Number 2, Anthony Penny Hardaway. We take a major step up for the final 2 players on this list, as both were generational talents who could have easily been top 50 players all-time if things had broken differently. As it is, both had impressive careers that included very brief sojourns onto the Warriors. Anthony Penny Hardaway was a college phenom for his hometown Memphis Tigers, and he entered the 1993 NBA draft as one of the top prospects. Indeed, he was selected with the 3rd overall pick, just after the 10-foot-tall Sean Bradley, height figures approximate, and Fab 5 big man Chris Webber. Webber was selected 1st overall by the Orlando Magic, and could have been a dominant pairing alongside Shaquille O'Neal in the frontcourt. O'Neal, however, was reportedly not interested in sharing the paint, and recommended that the Magic take his Blue Chips co-star Penny Hardaway instead. That's actually what came to pass, as the Magic drafted Webber but immediately turned around and traded him to the Warriors for Hardaway and a trio of first-round picks. Hardaway would go on to form a dynamic pairing with O'Neal, even reaching the NBA Finals in 1995, but significant injuries cut his career short. Those picks that were sent to the Magic in the Hardaway deal? One of them comes into play for the final player on our list. Number 1, Vince Carter. Vince Carter is well known for his absolutely insane vertical. Known as Flying Man, Air Kanda and Half Man, Half Amazing, Carter was one of the greatest dunkers in NBA history. He also was an 8-time All-Star and 2-time All-NBA selection, played a whopping 22 seasons in the league and ranks 20th in league history with 25,728 career points. Carter's career was a series of full-circle moments. Carter was born in Daytona Beach, Florida, and the Warriors' 1998 draft pick that would be used to draft him was traded to the nearby Orlando Magic in the Chris Webber, Penny Hardaway trade in 1993. That pick wouldn't stay put, however, as it was traded a year later to the Washington Bullets. 4 months later it was on the move again, as Washington used it to trade for Chris Webber. That's right, that pick was used to acquire Webber twice before it was ever made. That put the pick back in the hands of the Warriors, and when it landed 5th overall they used it to select Vince Carter. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Carter wasn't long for the Warriors. They flipped the pick to the fledgling Toronto Raptors organization in exchange for Antawn Jamison. Carter would eventually make it to the Orlando Magic in 2009, playing just over a season there before continuing his journey around the league. His stop with the Warriors was brief but certainly not uneventful. Carter headlines the list of players who came through the Golden State organization without staying to play a single minute.